Nice fish. Hi guys, Zeno Hromin here with another edition of Fishing with Lures. I've been thinking about today, about this video, and sitting down and talking about what I perceive to be the most important part of surf fishing. By far, the number one, okay? And I'll let you think about what I'm gonna say for a second or so until I get to it. And I said to myself, man, there's no way that I could do this in one video. There's no way that no one can do this in series of videos, or maybe you could, I guess, or the books should just be written about it. My point is, when we talk about what's important in surf fishing, we tend to put a lot of stock into what color did you get it on, what were they hitting last night, what size were the fish, what were they feeding on, what was the tide, what was the moon, who made your bag, did you swim to the rock, what kind of rod did you use, did you have a Van Stol, did you have a Z-Bass, did you have a pen, did it take on water? All those things that we talk about, and there's more, you know, from clips to line to, you know, how did you get the cast out, what kind of line did you use a thinner line, did you manage to make the longer cast, did you use a clip, did you use a leader with a leader shot? I mean, it's a million freaking things, but it all comes down to a thing that's least discussed, which is structure. Beach structure to me is number one, not even close to any of those things that I mentioned when it comes to importance of catching fish. And that's why I'm not going to stress myself of having these bullet points here where I'm going to go over and make sure I hit them all. Whatever pops in my head, it pops in my head. But I will break this down in multiple videos because I can see it already in my head that I can go on for an hour and we're not even going to be close to covering everything. And we're never going to cover everything because I tell you what, like most of you, I don't fish everything. I do have a general knowledge of a lot of things, but honest to God, I don't fish a lot of things, a lot of places, a lot of structures, a lot of, you know, I'm not a big calm water back bay guy. I'm just not. I like big plugs, I like rough water, I like ocean surf. That's what I like. Now, in the spring, will you find me in the back bays with a lighter rod? Yes. But as soon as the fish show up on a south shore, and even bluefish, I'll leave the bass and go chase bluefish because that's just where I like to fish. So my point is, none of us is great at everything, okay? So I'm definitely, I'll tell you right now, I'm nowhere near that. Actually, I'm nowhere near great at just about anything. I always felt that I caught a lot of fish via perseverance, okay? When everybody else was going home, when everybody else after 2 nights were tired, where, you know, I used to get up at 2 a.m., okay? Run down to Jones Beach. This is when weak fish was good. Run down to Jones Beach. From 3 o'clock to 4:30, I'd fish. I timed it perfectly where I could walk off the jetty, get in my car, get back to the railroad station and take the 5:31, which is my standard train to work, and go to work. And then I would repeat this as long as I could catch the tide. I mean, that's insanity. That's not, you know, your body can only take so much of this. But my point is, this didn't happen because I was brilliant. This happened because I knew there were fish there, and this was the only tide that I could work. And most people will be like, oh, well, I'm not doing that because I'm going to get fired. And I did it. So my point is, I caught a lot of my fish through perseverance, not necessarily because, you know, of my brilliance. Getting back to the structure. They said that 90% of the world's fish, or something like that, is within 10% of within shore. So inshore, is 90% of the fish is within 10% of the shoreline, you know, close to the shore. I would argue, and obviously this is not a scientific fact, but in my opinion, or my mind, 90% of the fish, or 95% of the fish will be found within 10% of the structure within inshore. And I'm not talking about boat guys. I'm not interested in what they do. I'm not interested about the wrecks or reef or whatever they fish. I could care less, okay? I mean, I like boat fishing. There's nothing wrong with it, but surf fishing is my love, so it's a whole different, I have a whole different level of understanding and obsession over it. So what do I mean? Okay, so let's just say that I feel that 90% of the fish are, let's just say if I fish Long Island, right? 90% of the fish will be within some structure. They will be either close to the inlet or on the sandbar which touches the shore, which is irregular to the rest of the sandbars, or at the jetties at Long Beach, or at the inlet at Mauritius, or at the point of Montauk. But they're not going to be, where they're not going to be? They're not going to be at Gilgal unless you are in a migration, okay? They're not going to be, I don't know, fins, okay? Now, having said this, you're going to be like, well, I catch fish at fins all the time, all year round. Yeah, you do. I'm sure you do. And I'm sure you very rarely get into the blitzes on the wide open beaches where you're picking up fish all alone. Most of those fish are staged in the inlets because that's where the bait is. My point is, nothing is absolute, okay? There is no absolute ways of catching fish or finding fish. But we know over the years, you know, by watching, by observing, by reading, by talking, that most of the fish will be staged in a certain spots and not spread out. If you go, and I'm going to say this because a lot of guys, let's say, fish Montauk, right? Or they go make a trip to Montauk, and you go to Montauk in the middle of fall when the fishing was good. And 99% of the guys will be from, let's just say, you know, Falls Bar, North Bar, then there will be a void of people, and then the people will be at Jones Reef, and then they'll be void in the weed bowl, and then people will be at the bluffs, and then they'll be at the lighthouse. And then you look for miles down from North Bar to Chagrin, and there's no one there. Now, if you think that most of these guys would not rather go at stepping stones where there's no one to be alone instead of fishing shoulders to shoulder, you're crazy. And if you think that no one has tried to do it, you're crazy too. They have. The thing is, the fish are not there. They are here, and that's why the guys are here. Okay, but you got to think about this in terms of the way you see people, okay? If you see people crowded in one spot, 99% chance is that the fish are also crowded in that spot, meaning that the bait is crowded in that spot. So everything around that stuff is not as productive. So you can fight everybody and think that you're smarter than everybody else and walk away, and you don't want to be, you know, fishing in crowds, which is fine. Or you can find another better time or hours where they can't fish, so you can have a little more, space to yourself. But you can't argue with the fact that most of the fish will be found in specific areas. And this is what I mean when I say the structure, okay? And the structure can be anywhere from an inlet, a drainage channel, an inlet between the two islands in a back bay, a marsh drop-off, an island in the sea, okay? Let's just say a point sticking out into the water, a cut in a sandbar. Anything that's irregular, it's something that you should concentrate most of your efforts. Now, if you like chunking and you like to be away from the pluggers and you want to get in some space, you're probably not going to be most of the time in these places because you're going to get probably crowded over by guys fishing plugs most of the time. Let's say Montauk Lighthouse being one of the spots, inlets being another spot, you know, places like that. But if you are a lure fisherman, you will find or you will seek these particular spots. They do a bunch of things for a particular lure fisherman that you can't replicate in the areas where don't have the structure. First of all, they create the areas of unstable water. And this is basically what you're looking for when you're surf fishing, okay? You're looking for anything irregular. There is 100 and something miles of beach. Let's just say I'm going to say New York because I fish New York, so I'm kind of more familiar with it, but you can apply this to where you fish. There's 120 miles, I believe, from Brooklyn to Montauk Point of sand, okay? I'm going to say maybe a mile or two out of that is really productive. The other 118 miles are probably no fish in it. A bunch of skates and sand sharks and sea robins. So does that make sense in a way that you should now just go to the beach and says, well, the fish are on Jones Beach and you just go and walk? No, you find the structure. So you will fish, let's just say, a jetty, or you will fish an inlet, or you will fish the sandbar. And then, so if you find that the fish is good, let's just say, because somehow you got to figure this out. Either someone's got to tell you, or you got to figure out on your own, which is fine. Either way, there's no shame in either, there's no shame if somebody call you up and say, listen, we had fish at the, Smiths Point Beach, or at Rhode Island at the, Narragansett, or whatever it is. So my point is, when you get there, like, it's very rare that someone's going to call you and says, look, I had a fish last night. It was 35 steps from the entrance that make 2 lefts and 2 rights and cast, and you're right there, right by the rock I painted a little X for you so you don't get lost. That doesn't work like that, okay? For the most part, the fishing's not that easy, okay? Whoever's gonna give you information is gonna give you general information. My point is, how do you then process that information where you can go and try to give yourself the best chance for success, okay? What you now have to find within the structure, within the beach, is the most irregular part of that beach. Now, again, we are making this general observation, so because the way I'm laying this out is that in a way that you can apply this to wherever you are. I'm not trying to go into specific places which might be good or bad. For example, we all know that inlets are best fish on the outgoing, okay? I fish most of my spots on incoming. Why? Because my spots are more productive on incoming because of the way the holes next to the jetties are laid out on the bottom, and the way the current goes over them, they're more productive on incoming. Okay, and there's rocks underneath the water, which water floats over and creates this unstable structure. My point is, it's not a general sense. That particular spots work for me on a quote unquote wrong current, or wrong tide, or whatever you want to call it. So my point is, these talks are on a general observation, so you can apply this. You can say to yourself, all right, I'm new at this. I'm going to go to the beach. What am I looking for? All right, if you only find one thing, and that is the most unstable water on that beach, you're probably going to do better than anywhere else on that beach. That's my point. And the whole point of this is to find the best chance of success. As I explained it before, 120 miles of beach and 2 miles being productive. Well, guess what? Your chances of being productive are not very good. So whatever you can learn in order to make you more productive, it's going to make the sport more enjoyable, because it is a difficult sport to consistently be successful, especially now when the fisheries are kind of in flux. 2019, the fishing's not the greatest. So how do we approach the structure? So in my way of thinking, this really depends on how and where you fish. I'm looking at areas like back bays being one specific type of structure, the ocean front being another, and then meaning the wide open beaches. So the back bay and wide open beaches being 2 structures, and then the inlets being a third one. And inlets, I would put inlets that are the ocean inlets, and also the little inlets like bridges. I consider bridges inlets. They're not inlets, obviously, but they're usually built between 2 very narrow points of land, and the current there is so great that usually you can replicate the same thing that you do at the inlet. It's kind of a similar structure. That's why, I call it an inlet. So I'm going to try to break this down in 3 different location-specific talks where I could give you my thoughts of how to fish, what lures to use, when is the best time. For today, we'll just kind of generalize the structure, okay? So let me just give you one example. Let's say I show you this picture, right? And you're looking at it and you go like, looking at this Google map, and this is a wide map. This is just a wide map of Northeast, and you go to yourself, where would be the 3 spots if I could pick? You know, if I don't know the names, where would be the 3 spots that are look, or let's say 4 spots, that look fishy, and tell me why, okay? So I'm showing you this map now, and you tell me, think about it for a second. To me, these 4 spots jump right out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Why? Well, I have a phone right here where I have this map also. If I'm looking at it, both Montauk and Cuttyhunk on the opposite side, you will see that they are both at the end of the line of land, okay? So landmass. So Cuttyhunk is the last island in the Elizabeth chain, okay? So all the fish usually funnels out of the Buzzards Bay, out around it, and same thing when they're coming in, okay? Montauk, again, it sticks like a thumb. It's all the way at the end of Long Island. All the fish comes around on the migration from south, and they all go back around in the fall, okay? Now, they follow the bait. Could they cut in one of the inlets? Sure, they could. I mean, that's you know, that's why the inlets are another great place to fish. But in general sense, the fish don't all just cut out through one of the inlets and get on the other side. It doesn't work like that. If you're thinking in those terms, well, then this spot is for you that I marked. This is Cape Cod Canal. Obviously, all the fish, most of the fish, some of the fish, depending on the bait. Again, bait is the key. Go from the Buzzards Bay to the Cape Cod Canal, which makes it a great place to fish. What about this 4th spot that's just like a dot in the middle of anywhere? Nowhere, whatever you call it. What is it? It's Block Island. Why would you want to fish there? Well, why do guys go out in the ocean and fish the reef? Because that's what all the fish are. It's all sand around it, and then they put 2 subway cars in there, and 2 years later, all the fish are in those subway cars. Look at it, Block Island's the same way. It is a massive land in the middle of nowhere, all right? Bait fish will not stay in 100 feet of water to travel. They usually stay close to the shore. That's how they protect themselves. So, and plus you're going to have all the inshore fish that are always around the quote-unquote structure, which the island is. So you have your blackfish, you have your brigals, you have your fluke, sea robins, porgies, sand eels, and then a migrating bait. Of course, it's going to hold a decent amount of stripers and blues, you know, a game fish that want to feed on those things. They're not going to go in 60 feet of water unless there's a lot of bait fish for them to be there. That doesn't make any sense. So my point is, you just quick look at the Google map and you identify 4 spots that are, by the way, the legendary spots. So in those ways, in looking at that, you know, you can find these quote-unquote legendary spots in your back bay that nobody probably fishes that are similar in shape to this. You know, if there's a point of land jutting in a back bay where all your, you know, back bay is flushing towards it as it goes out in a bay in Connecticut, or, you know, on a Long Island Sound or New Jersey or Raritan Bay, that is going to be a great spot to fish. Obviously, you'll have to figure out how to fish it. You know, throwing a metal lip in, you know, on a drop-off where there's 20 feet of water by the bank, it really is a no-sum game. You're not going to win that one. That's probably a shadow bucktail kind of thing, or even a deep diving metal lip. That can always, you know, be used in those terms. So my point is this, you know, even if you're looking at this aerial shot of Sandy Beach, I think I took this years ago. If you see this beach, if you see this point, this bar that comes into shore, you will also, if you have listened to my whitewater video, this is the bar that I was actually describing that day when we had a mullet run. And you can see the way this bar comes into the shore, like literally touches the shore. And all the bait fish that's going either left to right or right to left, depending on season, wind, current, the whole nine yards, has to go over this ball. And think about it. All the fish, game fish, should be in this bar, area around this bar, depending on the tide. Because this gives them the best chance to ambush that bait without having to chase them down the beach. So this is the kind of structures that you're looking at the beach. I can't tell you what beach you should be looking at because I don't know where you live and I don't know what your beach looks like. But every beach has a good spot, spot, and a shitty spot. Every beach. Now, the shitty spot might be a great spot today, but if you play percentages, I was watching last night 60 Minutes and they had this lottery story where this gentleman from, I don't know if it was Michigan or somewhere, I'm not sure, but he figured out that when nobody wins the top prize, the money rolls down, so the fifth number, the fourth number, and third number bumps up the payout. So he figured out that if he invests enough money, his percentages are that he would win more than he would lose. So if there was $1 million winner and nobody won, and then the guy with 5 numbers, his share increased, he'd buy $1,000, $2,000 tickets and he'd make $3,000. Eventually he got to the point where he was buying $700,000 worth of tickets. And then he went to Massachusetts. Anyway, they went to like $28 million worth of tickets and they made money all the time. My point is, it was average. It was average. Could have, technically he bought all bad tickets? Yeah, but the averages don't work out like that. It's like a long-term investing. If you're consistent, you'll do fine. Same thing with the good spots. And the good spots will always be consistently more productive than the bad spots. So just like you trying to force your favorite plug when the fish don't want it, it's like fishing the spots that don't produce when everybody else is catching fish. Which kind of goes with this general talk and structure, is that if you are fishing sand eel run in particular, okay, sand eels are notorious for this shit, okay? Because with bunker and squid and all this other stuff that moves around with the tide, and you know, today they're here and you chase them down tomorrow, and they were there, maybe they'll be here tomorrow, and you got to find them. With sand eels, it's not like that. Sand eels don't go from, let's just say, Cape Cod down to Jersey. Sand eels come from deep water to shallow water. Okay, so they're in 60 feet of water, they come in shore and beach. The bass feed on them. So the example, I'll give it to you, they are in Shinnecock or Hamptons, all right? And they're not at Jones Beach, which in most years seems that way. Let me tell you something. You can stay on Jones Beach until you look like a skeleton on a beach and catch nothing, because those fish will never, well, those bait fish will never come to Jones Beach. So that migration that you're waiting in the fall to happen, it's not going to happen. What's going to happen most years when the sand eels are primarily bait is they'll feed on sand eels until that bite is over. They'll go into 60 feet of water and they'll go right to Jersey, and you'll be like, what just happened? Don't spend time thinking that you're smarter than everybody else, that just because, you know, the fish are there and on sand eels that they're going to come to you. They're not going to come. There's certain baits that you have to go to the fish. You have to go where the bite is. If you're fishing bad structure, that's another thing. You have to get that out of your head. You got to go and find a better structure, okay? So things like that. When the fish are on sand eels, you have to go where the fish are. When the fish are bunker, you can be a little bit more picky. You can probably figure out, okay, today they're here, tomorrow they're basically going to wind and tide, and the way they're moving, the schools might be down 10 miles down the beach. Usually that way, meaning south, because that's the way usually migration goes. You know, east to west, you know, south or south, depending if you're in Jersey or somewhere. So that in some ways is also related with the structure. We'll cover how the sand eels relate to structure and what's the best bait fish, which I think it would do another, I think it would be another good video that we do if we just kind of take the bait fish and what lures should you use with what particular bait fish, which sometimes is very hard because you have to be honest. A lot of times we don't know what the bait fish is. We're guessing, we're thinking, a lot of times you're snagging a bait fish, obviously you come back with 2 eels I mean, sand eels impaling your hook and you go like, oh, well, sand eels. Yeah, I know that. But most of the time, you know, you can't visually see what they're feeding on unless you clean your fish the next day, which, you know, I don't remember the last time I ate striped bass. I'm just, at this point, I don't hate on anyone who takes illegal fish. Please, by all means, this is your right, and I'm okay with that. I just want you to not overdo it and treat the fish with respect. Whatever you release, be careful with it. You know, don't step on it. Don't do any of that shit, okay? You know, give a little bit, you know, this fish gives you a lot of joy. Treat it with respect. You want to take a legal fish to eat or feed your family, I don't have a problem with that. I just haven't done it in a long time because it just hasn't been the right time. I haven't really felt like doing it. But that would be the only way that I could tell what they're exactly feeding on. So when someone does take a fish, I always ask them, you know, did you clean the fish? What was in the stomach? So I know, which is another neat way of finding out better than most guys that are around you, what exactly are you dealing with where they don't know and you do know because you know somebody who told you so. So that's my thing on structure. Is very general. I know it's very general. We'll try to go more specific, like, you know, what lures to use in inlet, what use to lures on sand and stuff like that. But I wanted to give you a general overview because I feel that structure is an insanely important subject and very, very rarely covered. We all tend to be like going to these plug shows and buying the, you know, the best plugs, the longest. Oh, my plug can catch 130 feet. Oh, that's nothing. I go down to 6-pound braid and I can, you know, cast in a fucking Bermuda. Okay, it doesn't, you know, the fish are inshore. If you can cast a metal lip and catch a fish, your casting distance, you know, most of the times don't matter. So we'll go over all of that. But I wanted to give you an overview. Again, if you like what we do, on the bottom of the video on the right-hand side, there's a link there. You can click on it at any time and subscribe to our channel. We have a publication, Surfcaster's Journal, at surfcasterjournal.com. Check it out. There's a lot of stuff that you can see. You don't have to be a subscriber. By all means, check us out. See what we do. I'll pass it on to other people. You know, pay it forward. Trust me, it'll come back to you in many ways if you just help people, you know, get better. And, you know, maybe one day somebody will give you the information that they gave to me over the years that I didn't even see it coming, and I'm still grateful to this day. See you at the beach.